I'm Steve Marshall, artist and pastor on staff at Willowbrook United Methodist Church. Christmas is almost here, and I'm sure many of us are still busy shopping for last-minute Christmas gifts. Gift giving is an important part of our Christmas tradition. Our children might even suggest that it's the most important tradition. As a child, I would look forward in eager anticipation to Christmas morning when, somewhat bleary-eyed, I would come downstairs with my brothers and sisters and gasp in wonder at the abundance of brightly wrapped presents flowing out from under the Christmas tree. The giving and receiving of gifts is that special time when we express our love for one another in ways that delight the heart. It is also a tradition that extends back 2,000 years to the gifts brought by the wise men to the baby Jesus. As they finally arrived at the birthplace of the King of Kings, they knelt at the manger and offered their gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. In this vulnerable, innocent newborn life, God had presented to the world his own special gift of love, the gift of his own Son, born in the little town of Bethlehem. It's a familiar story, told and retold at this time of year. And as we tell the story over and over, year by year, it never ceases to amaze us how the Creator of the universe took upon himself human form, became one of us, how he came not with power and might, but as a tiny, helpless baby, how he came to be Emmanuel, God with us, to experience everything we as humans have ever experienced, to become like us so that we might become like him. Well, it's a scene all too familiar to us at Christmas time. A young mother giving birth in a stable, surrounded by animals, her infant son placed in a manger full of hay. Shepherds kneel outside, brought by the news of the angels that the long-awaited Messiah had finally come. And a star shines brightly overhead, guiding the wise men on their journey to see this new king. And all of this unfolding because of the birth of a child. But not just any child. This baby Jesus is the Lord of creation, the giver of life, God's holy Lamb. This little baby Jesus has come to redeem us with the gift of his own birth in Bethlehem. As Mary looks upon her son, she can only think of pure innocence, asleep on the hay, unaware of all the events unfolding around him, his new life just beginning, yet already preordained. The prophets of old had told of his coming. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel, which means God is with us. He will feed his flock like a shepherd. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the nations. He will be a light to the world. And so the people had waited expectantly for the Messiah. The anointed one of God was coming. One day there would be justice. One day we would know freedom. One day God would come to save his people. That was the word of hope from the prophets of old. But for now, he was lying in a manger, his mother gazing at him lovingly, aware that she was part of an amazing event. For God himself, creator of all life, had come to be with his people, to show them what it means to be fully human, to show them what it means to truly love. And so the Messiah was born. Author Max Lucado describes it like this: who would have thought that God himself, creator of the universe, would appear among his creation as a human infant? Who could have conceived of God, omnipotent and all-powerful, becoming a vulnerable baby, subject to colds, diaper rash, and yes, even death? Who knew that first fateful night that God had come to be among us? I wonder, Mary, did you know? We know that he came not in a flash of light or as a mighty conqueror, but as a baby whose first cries were heard by a peasant girl and a sleepy carpenter. Were it not for the shepherds, there would have been no reception. If it hadn't been for the wise men, there would have been no gifts. Who could have known that God himself was now here among us? Who could have known that the events of this night would change the world forever? I wonder, Mary, did you know? From our vantage point, 2,000 years later, we can see the complete picture. We know that the birth of Jesus was just the first act of the greatest love story of all time. Jesus was God's gift of love, but that act of love was completed on the cross. This is why Jesus was born. This is why God came into the world, to pay the price for our sin, to suffer a painful and humiliating death on that cross, so that we might know God's great love for us and at last be reconciled to God. You see, Christmas has no meaning unless we see it in light of the cross and the resurrection. It is Easter that gives Christmas its true meaning. Without the cross, there is no Christmas. As Mary gazed at her newborn son, did she see all that his life would mean? Did she see the shadow of the cross? I wonder, Mary, did you know? Christmas is a time for stories, and the greatest of all is the Christmas story, because in that story lies the greatest truth of all, that God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. This is what Christmas is really all about. It's all about God's great love for each one of us, that he came to be with us, that by his life, death, and resurrection, we might be with him forever. This is God's gift to the world. It is a gift of love. It is a gift given without strings and without conditions. It is a gift given to all God's people. It is the gift of God himself. But it is also a gift that must be received and opened. We must be willing to get past the outer wrappings, the bright and colorful decorations, the comfortable traditions that overlay God's gift and sometimes obscure it. We must be willing to receive God's gift, not with our hands, but with our heart. We must be willing to embrace it completely, with our whole being. You see, to truly receive God's gift, we must be willing to give our own gift in return, the gift of our own heart and life. You might say it is a gift exchange, one for the other. And when we have given God the one thing he most cherishes, we will at the same time have finally received God's wonderful gift for us, prepared for us for all eternity. Amen.